All right, good afternoon and welcome to another edition of a Google Plus Hangout for Channels Beam. And today we're looking at the education system in Nigeria. Joining me to look at this, we have Adeboye Oshinaga. He joins us from Lagos, Nigeria. Thanks for coming on board.
Thank you.
Of course. We have Dipo Awojide, who joins us from London, well, the United Kingdom. I'm not really sure precisely where he's calling from, but then thanks for coming on board. All right, we also have Mohammed Ahira Aminu, who joins us also from the United Kingdom. Thanks for coming on board as well.
Thank you, Victor. Thanks for having me.
Of course. If you could do us a favor and put your camera backwards a bit. You're cutting up. Okay. Yeah, this is okay. All right, so, yeah, this is fine.
Okay.
This is fine. All right, so Adeboye, let me come back to you. And I mean, we are together in Lagos, so let me give you the home advantage to get kickstart this conversation. What do you make? What do you think of? How would you? Let me just put it this way: how would you rate Nigeria's education system at the moment?
So, if there were several metrics to use instead of one metric, I would say that Nigeria does below average on every single one. So if I was to choose 5 metrics, Nigeria would not have an average score in any of them.
Wow. Well, I'll get back to you to expatiate more on that. Dipo, let me also get your own assessment now of the Nigerian education system.
About quality of
okay, Dipo, we really can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we're trying to. Do you have maybe like an earplug or something you can use?
I'll have to step out to get that.
Okay, so before you come back, let's get to hear from Aminu.
Okay.
Yeah.
For having me.
Sure.
First of all, I think it is important to remember the words of Nelson Mandela, that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. I think that was a very profound and powerful statement. And if anything, it means that the essence and value of education cannot be overemphasized. If education dies, I think a country and a people is dead. So going back to Nigeria, I think that education in Nigeria is at a terrible state. Sorry to use that word. And I think it mirrors the Nigerian reality. It's a mirror image of what you have actually in Nigeria. I don't see Nigerian universities, for example, doing better than Nigerian hospitals or being in a better shape than Nigerian roads.
Well, not too good an assessment there by both of you, but then Dipo is back again. Dipo, I hope we can get to hear you this time around. Hello, Dipo. Hello, Dipo, can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Hi, Victor, I can't hear you, unfortunately. I can hear you a bit now, but let's see, does this work? Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, go ahead.
Can you use this? I think I'll just have to speak up a bit louder, if that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, yeah, so I was saying that the education system in Nigeria, the quality of education in Nigeria cannot be compared to, I mean, most Western countries and now some African countries. So think about the education system in Ghana, for example. We now have loads of Nigerian students, higher education students who are ending up in Ghanaian higher institutions or Ghanaian universities. And this is because the quality of education that is being offered in Ghana seems to be better than what Nigerian universities actually offer. This is the same with Cyprus, this is the same with Malaysia. So it's not just the US, it's not the UK or Canada. Nigerian students now go to other mid-class destinations or mid-ranking countries as against preferring to study in their own country. And this is basically because of the offer. This is because of the value that is being offered in the Nigerian education system, which I think overall, at the moment, it is subpar.
All right. Since all of you are on the same page, but then, boy, let me come back to you. You set the ball rolling. Based on what you said now, let me see. Do you have any detail, or how can you back up what you said in terms of what the system looks like?
So just looking at some of the top global education system in the world and seeing how they rank in terms of teacher quality, in terms of funding per capita for each student in the country, in terms of teacher training, in terms of quality assurance, in terms of infrastructure. So you see that Nigeria, I like how Aminu put it, Nigerian educational system is a reflection of the Nigerian reality. So the educational system is, as it's just the same way roles and power and the rest have been. And how are these things? So what's bad about them isn't where they are, naturally. It's what happens to them year over year, decade over decade. And what we've seen is that not an increase, not an improvement. And if you don't improve, then or you don't stay stagnant, then you're more likely are worse off compared to the rest of the world because of how far they have moved. And this is the case of Nigeria because 10 years ago people argued about whether our standards are falling. 10 years after, we're still arguing whether our standards are falling. It's supposed to be self-evident.
All right, I'll come back to you in just a minute, but Deepa, let me come back to you again. What could be responsible for what, or for the state, or for this place or this level that we are?
One of them is corruption. So there's a lot of corruption in them, and we don't also seem to pay attention to the important things in the country. So aside corruption, negligence as well. Like, it seems our political leaders just don't care about the education sector. They've just left the sector to, on a downward. Things have just, in the last couple of years, things have just gotten worse. So, like I said, corruption, negligence, not paying attention to the education system, not thinking about the welfare or prioritizing the welfare of academics. It's a whole lot of issues, but ultimately, what I think is the most important is the lack of leadership. So there's a clear lack of leadership in the education sector. If in the next couple of years, we get a minister who understands what the system is, who understands what the future should look like, I think we will begin to experience some change in the Nigerian education system.
All right, very well. Let me come to you. Deepa is saying that in the sense the issue of leadership, the issue of corruption is one of the reasons why we are where we are now. Looking at what we're discussing, do you agree that leadership and corruption?
Yes, I agree. I think, like Deepa said, there are a lot of issues. If we sit here and try to count, the issues that have brought us to where we are, I think we'll spend the whole day talking about that. But generally, what are the challenges? What are the challenges that the Nigerian educational system is facing today? I think these challenges are many. Let us take the higher institutions, for example. Being a graduate of a public university in Nigeria and having spent the last few years of my life reflecting on the state of our universities, for example, I find the Nigerian university model to be absolutely very, very peculiar. Where we are at the moment is actually very pitying. You cannot help but be stunned as a result of the type of individuals or the type of persons that our universities bring forth as graduates in Nigeria. And I don't want to be seen to be exaggerating this, but some of our graduates back home hardly can even stand up for the printed content of their certificates. You know, that's horrible. You have graduates in Nigeria who cannot write a simple application letter for employment. You have graduates whose conception of what should constitute educational qualifications on their CVs, you know, it's saddening, such that I once saw a CV where National Examination Council, West African Examination Council, and National Youth Service Corps were listed as qualifications. You know, so someone could not distinguish that these are not qualifications. These are exam bodies, and you know, these are organizations. These are institutions. They are not qualifications. If you can imagine that, you can imagine where the Nigerian educational system is. You also have a frequently deplorable performance of many Nigerian university graduates in entry-level job interviews. You know, they cannot make simple sentences in English language, where a language of instruction with which they receive their education. You know, and more unfortunately, a majority of university academic staff themselves could sometimes come across as barely educated. If you interact with some of these guys who identify themselves as university teachers in Nigerian universities, you cannot help but pity the students under their instructions. I know this because I do engage some of these academics in online debates, and I think, Victor, you know this too. So it's really unfortunate. But what is the implication of all this? The implication is that the world no longer takes Nigerian qualifications seriously. I do speak with my dad a lot. He's an academic. He told me that when he was a student of Ahmadu Bello University in the 70s, he had an American classmate who left all the universities in the USA and was studying in Zaria. You know, I remember also how Nasir El-Rufai, the present governor of Kaduna, wrote in his book, The Accidental Public Servant. He narrated how ABU became the first university in the world to offer a degree program in quantity surveying. So what has changed? You know, this is not the case today. People with PhDs from Nigerian universities cannot even find decent jobs abroad, especially in Europe and America, because people here perceive our degrees with a lot of contempt. So it's really unfortunate. There are a lot of issues to it, but these are just a few reflections that I think I will use to back up the argument.
All right, very well. Like you said, things have been happening, and they are where we are now. The question remains: how did we fall off from that? From top of the mountain to where we are at the moment. But then, if we're going to start looking at solutions, you know, moving forward now, what should we be looking at? What should we be doing to move out of this state that we're in at the moment?
So, I mean, thinking about the very excellent points that Aminu has made, I mean, I completely agree with everything Aminu has said. Things are so bad that, I mean, and things were bad 5 years ago, they were bad 7, 10 years ago. So we know the problems. So solutions, we need to think about the welfare of academics. First of all, we can't pay academics peanuts and expect them to perform at an excellent level. We can't, I mean, allow us to go on strike on a daily basis. And when my dad was still in, I mean, when he was still working for the government, the plan that the government worked for actually had was just go on and talk to them for as long as possible. As in, talk to ASU for as long as possible. They didn't have any solutions. They didn't. It was just as if they didn't really care about the students who would ultimately suffer the consequences of those ASU strikes. So we need to pay attention to the welfare of academics. Our universities also need to think about improving the employability and transferability skills of our undergraduate students. Because like Aminu rightly said, some of our students are not employable because they don't have the necessary skills. They are not creative, they can't multitask, they can't even write a CV. Some can't even compose basic sentences. So our universities need to be structured in such a way that students can learn core employability skills. So when they graduate, they are employable and they can contribute to national development. We might also think about bringing in career consultants and academic mentors, bringing in maybe 1 or 2 mentors for each faculties. They will liaise with students, mentor the students, help them think about their future, help them think about their aspirations, help them think about what is happening in the industry, help them think about commercial awareness and how they can fit in once they graduate. Importantly, we need to refresh the curriculum. The curriculum as it is dead. That's the truth. I mean, we have some of our friends tell us that they finished from ABU or from University of Lagos or University of Abuja studying computer science, and they still learn Fortran language and things of 1970s and 1980s. This should not be the case. Some of our lecturers still teach with notebooks of 1985. That's longer than I've been alive. That's hugely unacceptable. So overall, the curriculum needs to be refreshed. We need to make sure that we are teaching our students current case studies, current theories, and we also need to pay attention to mental health issues and disability issues. We need to care about everyone, not just those who are not disabled. Every student, every Nigerian student or Nigerian young adult needs to have a welcoming learning environment. So disabled students, for example, we need to pay attention to all of this. Then links with the industry. We need to basically encourage our faculties, engineering departments, business schools to have clear links with the industries in such a way that undergraduate students can work for 6 months or 1 year as part of their degree. It's not everything that you learn in the classroom. You can't be in the classroom for 4 or 5 years and expect that you have a clear understanding of what is going on in the industry. So there has to be that link with the industry. Importantly, investment on research as well. I mean, I've said importantly over and over again, and that's because I think all of these points are low-hanging fruits, and they are very, very important. These are basic things that we need to do to move the education forward sector. So it's not just, I mean, there are a lot of people who focus a bit on the problems, the challenges, but some other people actually have clear plans and clear solutions that we can actually implement in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years that will move the education sector forward.
Hello.
Hi, Victor.
Okay, great. All right. Like you said, I mean, low-hanging fruits, and they should be, I mean, like you said, be cut off and implemented as soon as possible. But then, let me come back to you, Adeboye. Hello, Adeboye, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here. I can hear you.
All right. Okay, I think I'm having challenges on my end, but then if you can help me punch on yourself so that you take the center stage, so you be on the big screen.
Okay.
All right, great. So we're looking at all right, great. I was trying to look at the issue of online degrees, studying via online, and maybe even the open university. Is that like an alternative? Is that a viable alternative? Do you think it's a viable alternative?
Yes, so Victor, I think that Nigerians are very passionate about education. So when they talk about education in law, they talk about the quality of education. However, a problem that's just as much as that, and even has even more impact and in our economy is access to education. So it's fine that we're trying to improve what we have. However, we have to remember that 10 million children are out of school in primary school, out of school, and they're not in primary schools today when they should be. And the same thing goes for the fact that 1.5 million students apply for university education, and only 1/3 of them can get into any university or any tertiary education and get any tertiary education at all. And so when you think of technology, what technology does, your education that you have in one location, and that makes it possible for people across different locations to have access to it. So, like in my company, EduTech, what we've done in Nigerian universities in the last 4 years is that we go to universities, Ahmadu Bello University, Obafemi Awolowo University, some of the top universities whose faculty will be appreciated by people everywhere, that they're presently not getting that kind of education. So people would appreciate an OU lecturer teaching them about economics, for example, because of the infrastructure, they can't access it. But with our technology, we now, being this lecturer using video, multimedia, and software, and make that education available to anybody who wants it. And so I think that we're increasing access in Nigeria. In fact, it's at the forefront of what we need to get education to as many people as possible.
All right, very well. Sorry, I kind of fell out of the Hangout for a minute. If you can bring your camera down a bit, I think you're too close. Yeah.
Okay. Is that me?
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. So Deepa, let me also come back to you on the issue of the online alternative as well as the Nigerian Open University. Do you think it's a viable one?
Yeah, I mean, if the central policy of the country is to make education accessible to everyone, then I think online.
Okay, so I was really struggling to hear you out, but then the thing is, like, I fell out of the Hangout using my official, and also I'll have to come back again. Just give me a few minutes. I'll be back again. Please bear with me. All right, guys, I think I'm back now and I'm better. All right, so Deepa, let me come back to you to get you again on the issue of whether it is an alternative viable using online studies and as well as the open university.
So I was saying we have to think about the overall policy. What's the overall direction of the ministry and the Minister of Education? As an individual, I personally am not a fan of online degrees. But if our strategy, the vision and the direction is to, let everyone have access to higher education, then I think, yes, online education in Nigeria should actually be acceptable. So there's no reason, I don't understand the reason why the minister or the Ministry of Education has actually banned online degrees or the acceptance of online certificates in Nigeria. If the strategy is to make education accessible to everyone, then if we go around banning online education, that's actually closing closing the accessibility of education to a few hundreds or thousands of people.
All right. Do you agree with this? Sorry, can you come again?
Yes, I agree with Deepo about online degrees, about his thoughts on online degrees. I like Deepo, I am not a fan of online degrees as well, but I think that should be allowed for people to have access to. But the problem of Nigeria, I think, is that if you can't get your education to be good offline, how do you make it good online? You know, we are struggling with power, electricity, for example. So I don't see the viability of online degrees in Nigeria. I think we need to get our education to be stable offline. People should have as much comfort studying in Nigeria. Our classrooms should be good. Our laboratories should be good. Then we can start thinking about, you know, the prospects of online education. I think wherever you go to in the world, countries who have a robust online education practice have started from somewhere, and that somewhere is actually, you know, making the groundwork or the foundations for offline education to be good before you transcend onto online. If we think that way, then we may even have people from outside Nigeria accessing our education online. So that is my thought about that.
All right. So just in wrapping up, the Minister of Education has actually put out about 10 pillars or so with which he wants to use in turning around the system as it is now. Do you think those pillars, if you have seen them, do you think those pillars will indeed transform Nigeria's education sector?
I'm just hearing about those pillars, but I want to believe they are good pillars that were well thought out. I think I personally believe in the Minister of Education, Adamu, from previous things that I know about him. So I want to believe he will do well. Maybe he will do well in the future. But basically, I think that there is a long way to go for Nigeria, and the government will have to come in definitely and rescue the system, you know, by providing support across all the educational value chain. We have to find a way of rising up from, you know, our underperforming reality to embrace a system that is success driven. And I think only then can we will say that we have a good education, and that is going to provide us with an ability to rise and be free as a people, and to demystify, you know, any trappings of our society. So I haven't seen those pillars that you talked about, but I want to give him a benefit of doubt, and I think it should work out for Nigeria.
All right. So for your own benefit, I think let's just let me look at those pillars and probably outline a few of them. Okay. Well, yeah, I think there's one. He has a vocational education and training. There is development in ICT. Okay. Yeah, just a few of them. Let me just,
yeah, I think these are very intelligent, well thought out pillars. When you talk about vocational education, it's good. What I understand about vocational education is an education that doesn't take too long to complete. They are for people who don't want to go through, you know, the hurdles of university education, you know. So I think these are okay. We have a lot of need for vocational manpower. Talking about ICT, yes, I think in every serious country in the world, the system of longhand using education, you know, accessing education by longhand is fast thinning out. So I think that ICT must be incorporated into our educational system, and I welcome that development.
All right. He also talked about teacher education as well.
Yeah, that is also good. I think the quality of our teachers, is actually appalling. You know, so my mom had a Nigeria certificate in education called NCE, and she told me that the rigor then to get an NCE, you know, qualification, the rigor you go through then was was almost the same with what you go through to get your university education. But I think the case is not the same now. I meet every day. I meet one or two people who have NCE qualifications, and I wonder how they got their qualifications. And I actually pity the kind of students that they teach. So I think it is good to revisit that education, that aspect of our education, and try to fix things. You know, it should help, really.
All right, very well. Well, Deepa, what do you think about these 10 pillars?
So I actually, I watched the interview and I saw one or two articles written about the 10 pillars that the Minister of Education actually, that is spoken about. So focusing on out-of-school children, focusing on basic education, vocational education, development of ICT, teachers training, and a few other pillars. At this stage, looking at the interview and reviewing the interview and thinking about some of the articles I've seen on these 10 pillars, these are just headline policy statements or headline. There's no much detail. There's nothing concrete. So a couple of months ago, there was actually a document that we saw online about the education policies that Obi Ezekwesili actually came up with. So if you go on the website of the Ministry of Education, we should actually be able to see a clear roadmap, a clear policy direction. This is what we want to do. This is how we want to do it. This is how we want to train teachers. This is how we want to incorporate ICT into our universities and basic education and all of that. But there's nothing. There's nothing. And at this stage, this administration is going to be 2 years in the next couple of months. That is already half, and by in the next 3-4 months, people will start speaking about 2019. In fact, a lot of people are already debating about who are the likely candidates for 2019, who should come out and who should not come out, and all of that. So at this stage, we expect that something tangible would have been done, not just coming to list 10 pillars of 10 pillars of direction of success for the education ministry. A roadmap, policy roadmap, should actually have been come up with in 4, 5, maximum 6 weeks, and implementation should actually have commenced. So there are a lot of policies that previous Nigerian commissioners and ministers have actually come up with that were never implemented. So like I said, some of those pillars, although they are very good, we need to get on as quickly as possible with implementing all the pillars, as the case may be.
All right, let's wait and see how that happens. Like you said, in a few months, this administration will be 2 years, and that's a clear example of when people say how time flies. But then let me come to you, Adeboye. I think we've over-exhausted the issue of the 10 pillars, but moving forward now, just in wrapping up, of course, what would be your closing statement?
Thanks, Victor. Very good contribution from Deepa about the 10 pillars. I think it's not about what, but about how. So it's fine to mention all the problems of Nigeria and make them 10 on the sheet of paper, but it's nothing until you show exactly how that's going to happen. That's on that. Generally, I think that we should understand that the problems of education are not just quality, but also access. That's something I think that we should get away with. Like the minister himself said, there's 11.5 million children out there that don't have an education. These are people who are bombs waiting to explode. This is disaster waiting to happen in terms of illiteracy, crime rates, and so on and so forth. I think that we should focus on the solutions, instead of the problems. And to do that, one way I know that I come from the business world, and one way I know that business people solve their problems is that they find out what their problem is through very clear measurement metrics. In Nigeria is a country where everybody screams alarm and everybody is saying, oh my God, the educational system is gone to rubbish without any clear numbers attached to these statements. That befuddles me. I would like to see us start to look at what exactly are we trying to improve upon? We may not be able to do everything at the same time, and that is fine. But the ones in which we are saying we want to improve. So you say you are doing the 11.5 million children out of school, and the minister says that's one of its pillars. What exactly, how will the pillar look like 2 years from now? Is it going to remove all 11.5 million people? That would probably be an impossible task. It's better that pillar would have been better stated as getting 500,000 more people yearly into primary school. That's the kind of thing we want to hear, not just, oh my God, we'll have all this trouble. Like university education, what we are doing with universities now, like ABU, for example, who some people say has lost its glory, is that as we help lecturers to think about how to deliver that content, we find out that these same lecturers who you will say, oh, they don't have anything, they are reading their books in 1965, are now trying to rewrite those books, in Microsoft Word, in Microsoft PowerPoint, using software tools that we provide for them, and now start to do things differently, think differently, do global research to find out the best ways to teach that topic. And so that is how to look at it. So we have to look forward, we have to measure, we have to plan. I believe that somebody was talking about how we need to engage the Minister of Budget and Planning in these things. One factor affects the other. If you spend billions of naira in training education in Nigeria, it would affect how much you can spend on laboratories. There's interconnection with these things. It doesn't happen one on its own, and you won't do every single thing. So we need to plan and say, which one are we prioritizing? I would have liked the pillar was about priority, and so you focus on first. I will focus on teacher education first. That's the biggest problem in primary and secondary education: the quality and the number of teachers. The professionalization of teaching in Nigeria is very terrible. Before, we used to celebrate teachers. Now teachers are things you do when you don't have any other job and you can't find jobs. So we need to focus and prioritize. So I'll prioritize teacher training and then curriculum review and how teachers can deliver this new fluid, 21st century curriculum. There's no point in having graduates with skills that don't match what they require in the industry. There's no point. There's no reason why that's acceptable. And then lastly, I want to end with the use of technology. I think, I recently met the NGC Executive Secretary, and he is very open to the use of technology. The idea is that as long as we can, every single new system has shortcomings. As long as we can plug those holes, as long as we can find out what happens if people are trying to fake their education, what happens when you look at all those scenarios, and then you can now plug them in and now ensure that the quality, like Aminu said, when we solve offline quality, we can now disperse that quality across every part of the country so that we don't have anybody left behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adeboye. But then also, Dipo, in wrapping up, what would you say?
Adeboye has made almost all very fantastic points. So we need to focus on teachers training. We need to focus on the welfare of academics. So pay our teachers and our lecturers, pay them adequately, train them adequately, invest in research and development, invest in improving the employability skills and transferability skills of young individuals, refresh the curriculum. So the curriculum actually is a 21st century fit for purpose curriculum. Create links, forge links with the industry, make sure our students, have a clear commercial awareness, go on placement or internships, revamp vocational schools. So it's not just universities alone or polytechnics alone, but vocational education as well has to be revamped. And basically, if we are able to do all of this in the next 5-10 years, we might be able to internationalize the Nigerian education sector, in that other Africans, people from Ghana, Sierra Leone, Liberia, can actually now start coming to our own schools, and that way we can improve our own economy and the currency as well. Because all these things, like Aminu and Adeboye have said, there's an interlinkage between the education and the economy. So if we are able to fix the Nigerian education sector, I think it will go a long way in helping to fix the Nigerian state as a whole. I know it looks like, the challenges look enormous, but if the minister and the Ministry of Education can pick core areas and focus on those areas and say, in the next 2-3 years, this is what we want to do. We want to get 5 million children into schools, or we want to get 2.5 million children into schools, and make sure that they progress from primary 1 to primary 2 to primary 3. I think we can do that. So if what the Buhari administration wants to do is solely focus on making education accessible to everybody, let us come out clearly and say that, and let us implement the strategy, not just come on the pages of newspaper and on Channels TV or NTA to talk about policy and talk about the roadmap. We need to implement these solutions. Obasanjo did not solve all the problems of Nigeria. The telecom sector, we can actually credit Obasanjo for what he did in the telecom sector. If the Buhari administration can also focus on one or two challenges in the education sector and say we are going to solve this, I think they would have achieved a lot by the end of 2019. And it is not just the presidency or the Ministry of Education and Minister of Education. Our state governors as well have a lot of work to do. The private sector as well has to contribute its own quota. I pray that God will bless our leaders with vision. God will bless our leaders with direction. Help them to, make the right policies and implement these policies to the betterment of the whole country.
All right, Pastor, you're going spiritual here. But then, of course, we need a little bit of that too sometimes in our daily lives. But then, let me also get your own closing statement before we take some comments from social media.
Okay, Victor. I think as a closing statement, I think we have to remember there is this statement that every child has the right to a good quality education. To realize this right, I think we must all be able to ensure that every child, every individual has a safe learning environment in Nigeria, and that we all have to, we are entitled to have well-trained, well-supported, and very motivated teachers, and that all of us also are actually required to get cognitive and non-cognitive skills that we need in order to prosper in this complex world of ours, to escape from extreme poverty. I think that will be of a lot of benefit for the economic growth of Nigeria. And these are actually necessary for us to fulfill our potential, unlock all our potentials, and to also pass these gains on to future generations. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. But just before we go, we do see all of you that are watching via our YouTube stream. And you guys have also been contributing your own comments. Someone who, well, as his handle says, Zizibo, he says, please, Nigeria has been like that for over 20 years. Corruption and poor education are only a small part of Nigeria's 1001 problems. Ehi Ekato says, if a professor was caught cheating, isn't it obvious Nigeria's education has dropped so far? It is about the lecturers, the institution, he says. And he adds also that we are trying to blame the government for everything. The institution itself is corruption. The lecturers are now teaching students, okay, this is a new one, sexology instead of what they are there for. He says our practical aspect is gone. Parents now help their children to pass the West African Senior Secondary School Certificate Examination, that's WAEC. Tayo Elegbede says the reality of a dysfunctional educational system is simply a crystal reflection of the Nigerian state. Absence of clear agenda, robust thinking, selflessness, and doggedness. Well, Zizibo again says Nigeria is too corrupt to incorporate online education in the education system. And Michael says, change the internet system in Nigeria and change our education. Well, that's all we can take. Of course, many more are coming in, but then we're out of time. Thank you, everyone, for coming on board. Those of you who joined via the YouTube stream. But then Deepo says he has one last point on NE. If you could just make that in a few seconds, before we go.
Thank you very much, Victor. I think the presidency and the state governors from the Northeast, we need a dedicated team to help rebuild schools, to help train teachers, so that the millions of kids in that area of Nigeria can have their life back. I mean, Boko Haram has done a lot of damage to the whole region, and particularly to education. So we need a dedicated team, and we need investment in education in the Northeast. This is a priority. I hope someone listens to this and sees this as a priority. Thank you.
Thank you once again, Dikbo. But that's how we wrap up the conversation today on the program. Dikbo Awodele joins us from the UK, as well as Mohammed Ahiru Aminu, who also joined us from the UK, and then Adeboye Oshinaga, who joined us from Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you all, and those of you who watched from various locations via our YouTube stream, thanks once again for joining us on this edition of Channels Beam, which looked at Nigeria's education system.
Thank you very much, Victor.